Robert, congratulations on becoming the president of the Oxford Union.
Thank you.
What have been some of the highlights of your term?
Well, I think there have been many. My committee and I worked hard over the last vacation to organise a wide range of debates and speaker events, putting together this term card. And I'd like to think that across a whole variety of different fields and categories, we've had some great speakers. So from the world of politics, we had John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, Sir John Major, the former Prime Minister. We had Ken Livingstone, controversial former Mayor of London, was here last week. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, a Russian dissident and former oligarch. And then from the world of TV and film, we've had Kate Beckinsale. From the world of music, we've had Katie Tunstall and James Blunt. So I think across a whole wide range of speakers, it's been quite a good term. I've been quite happy with how things have gone.
How does the Oxford Union mix the serious with the frivolous?
Well, we obviously do have some slightly less serious events. We have a comedy debate every couple of terms, which we run in conjunction with the Raise and Give charity organisation. And then we sometimes also have some less serious speakers involved in our debates. So Katie Hopkins, for example, took part in a debate on positive discrimination last term, which was quite good fun. But I think in general, I wouldn't draw a distinction between serious events and frivolous events. In general, we don't tend to organise things that are frivolous. But of course, we do have speakers from a wide variety of categories. And you might well say that when James Blunt was here playing his guitar and playing the piano, that's obviously not a serious event. But for many people, that's what they want to come here to see. The political speakers and the academic speakers aren't for everyone. And I think it's important that we have a wide range of events to cater for our entire membership. So I think I draw that distinction between political and academic, and then those speakers that fall under the categories of TV and film or music or sport or comedy. But I wouldn't say that the distinction is between serious and frivolous.
Even from the art of performance, you could pick up the message?
Well, there were always some deep messages in James Blunt's music. I think I asked him if he'd ever performed in a nightclub, to which he replied, "Have you heard my music?" It really wouldn't be that kind of atmosphere, and there's clearly deep meaning in some of his songs. But that was great fun. He actually, as well as performing his songs, he brought along some tweets which he gave out to members of the audience and asked them if they could write some responses to them, because he's famed for having quite a funny, satirical Twitter account. So that was very good fun. And when Kate Beckinsale was here, it was the premiere of her new film just a day later. So she was showing some clips from her film. And of course, those events aren't the big serious speeches that we receive from politicians, but they're also important. They are what many of our members want to come here to see.
You had two big name speakers recently. What impressed you most about them?
Well, that was quite a busy week. We had John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, here on the Wednesday, which was a huge event because it was the first time that we've been visited by a sitting US Secretary of State. So quite a moment in history for the Oxford Union. And then just 2 days later, Sir John Major, the former Prime Minister from 1990 until 1997. So really exciting. I think what impressed me most about both of them was how down to earth they appeared. They just seemed like normal people in conversation with the students here at the Union. They weren't on a pedestal or elevated on a platform. They were just having a conversation with students. And that's really important, especially for all the students here in the audience watching, thinking they're not above me, they're not on a different level to me, but actually they're ordinary people. And the truth is, many people here at the Union will go on to hold high office like the two of them. So to see that way in which they were down to earth, ordinary people was quite inspiring.
Do you think the Oxford Union will be as split as the country when it comes to the EU referendum?
Well, I have no doubt that it will. In fact, actually in 2 days' time, we have a debate on the EU referendum, which will be taking place just 2 weeks before the actual referendum itself. On the Leave side, we've got Lord Michael Howard, we've got Daniel Hannan and Baroness Jenny Jones. And then on the Remain side, we have Alex Salmond, Yvette Cooper and Lord Michael Heseltine, who's actually an ex-president of the Union himself. His bust is over there on the side of the chamber. And, well, it's going to be a fascinating debate with lots of press and media coverage. I certainly wouldn't want to call which way the debate's going to go. There are obviously strong arguments on both sides, and I'm really looking forward to hearing them. But actually, the last time that we had a referendum on Britain's membership of the EU was back in 1975, when the question was, should Britain remain a member of the European Economic Community? And similarly, there was a debate here at the Union just 2 days before the actual referendum. The Union voted that we should stay a member, and then 2 days later the country voted that we should stay a member. So I think what's really exciting is that we obviously invite speakers here to influence members of the Oxford Union and Oxford University, but what's really exciting is actually when we as the Union can have an impact on the wider world and on the country at large. So it'll be great to see, following our debate in 2 days' time, whether we do actually have some influence on how the country votes when it goes to the polls 2 weeks later.
So Oxford Union is leading the world?
Well, we'd like to think we have some sort of impact. The mantra that we go by when we invite speakers is people who shape our world. And they shape our world when they're outside of the Union, but we also hope that when they come to the Union they continue to shape the world, and we'd like to think that we do have some sort of impact on what goes on outside of here.
When does free speech becomes hate speech, and who decides which is which?
Well, obviously hate speech laws are decided by Parliament, they're the law of the land and not really for us as the Union to interfere with. But actually, I think the distinction that I would draw is not between free speech and hate speech, it's between free speech and unchallenged speech. So we often get criticised here at the Union for inviting controversial speakers and for giving speakers a platform. But our response to that is that we don't provide speakers with a platform. If they had a platform, that would mean their views are going unchallenged. They are given a pedestal from which to espouse their views, and there's no one there to question them. Whereas here at the Union, what we think free speech really is about is providing a forum. It's a place where ideas can be engaged with and challenged and questioned. And as long as you have that kind of atmosphere, as long as you've got a place where students can really engage on the same level as these speakers, I don't think that any views are too controversial to be heard. We shouldn't be protecting people from views because they're too dangerous or too offensive. We should say, no, come here, come and tell us your views, and let's see if they stand up to criticism, because that's the only way that the truth really wins out. We had Marine Le Pen here last year, which was greatly criticised, but I think actually she came here and her views were shown to be horrific. People went away not thinking, she's convinced me, but actually I'm glad I've had a chance to hear her views and think about how I can argue with them and show why they're wrong. And in much the same way, just last week, we had Ken Livingstone, the former mayor of London, here. He's recently made some comments about how Hitler was apparently a Zionist, amongst various other anti-Semitic comments. And he came here and his views were challenged and questioned, and that's what I think is so important. We shouldn't say that views are hateful and therefore we shouldn't hear them. We should say, come and tell us your views, let us question them, let us debate them, and we'll see at the end what we all think.
Well, Oxford Union is very, very famous for the freedom of speech.
Yeah. It is. It's what we thrive off, it's what we live off.
How it started?
Well, exactly. We were founded back in 1823 at a time when free speech was under threat in the university, at a time when it was seen that certain ideas were too dangerous to be heard. And the Union, therefore, was set up as a forum where any ideas can be discussed, as long as they're subject to the correct challenge and debate. And that's why Harold Macmillan, who is also in a bust, he used to be librarian, vice president of the Union, and then, of course, prime minister. He described the Union as the last bastion of free speech in the Western world. And at a time when we're seeing free speech under threat, not just in Oxford University, but on university campuses around the country, I think it's really important that the Oxford Union stands strong and says that speakers are welcome to come here as long as they accept we're not providing them with a platform, we are giving them a challenge to have their views debated, and we'll always be there to provide that opportunity.
it must be a great impact on students' ideas.
Well, I'd like to think so. It's obviously where lots of students develop their skills, which they then go on to use in later life. And it's also just quite a fun place. There's nowhere else really, I think, where you can be listening to John Major and John Kerry one day and Morgan Freeman the next day, hearing a really important debate on the EU the day after that. It's a great place to be involved with.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
Good, well please do come along.
What do you hope to do in the future, and how will your Oxford experiences help you?
Well, lots of people who are involved with the Oxford Union end up going into politics, which is not really what I want to do. I wouldn't rule it out at some point in the future. I think it would be disingenuous for anyone in my position to rule out going into politics, but come and ask me in 20 years' time. Certainly in the short term, I'd like to be a commercial barrister. So it's my aim now to apply for a law degree and go down that route. In terms of how the union will help me, I think there are probably a couple of ways. Certainly the skills that I've picked up here in this chamber are going to be vital. The skills of debate and argument, obviously being a barrister, being in the courts, those skills are going to prove to be invaluable. But also in my role as president, I think the managerial and organisational skills are going to be hugely important. There really aren't any other organisations that I can think of where, as a student, you're given control of a budget of £1 million, of a committee of up to 50 or 60 people, where you employ 10 full-time staff. And doing all that alongside being a student, I think the skills that I'll learn from that are going to be hugely important.
So leadership and communication skills?
Well, absolutely. And communication skills is obviously what the union is all about.
Thank you very much for being with us, Voices from Oxford.
Thank you so much.